Hello there developers, welcome to this video where we'll be trying to implement a custom styling system which will allow us to change or switch between say dark theme and light theme programmatically in real time without closing and opening the app either manually or automatically when the device dark theme feature is enabled. So we're using the same project we used in the last video where we implemented a custom animation system. If you did not watch that, you do not have to. We're gonna get rid of this code and we're gonna go back to an empty app because we're working on something entirely different. The first thing I'm gonna start with is the navigation system. Because we're using a single activity, we need a way to switch between pages by adding and removing content to our single activity. We're gonna change from activity to app compat activity for compatibility with older versions of Android. And we're gonna start by making a page class inside the content package. We're gonna create this class which extends frame layout from Android widgets. We need to match the constructor because it needs to take context. We're gonna give it a few more functions or methods for attaching when it's attached to a window and also when it is detached from a window, means from the app, right? So our app will need a private frame layout root, which is the frame layout we're gonna add things to and remove from. So we're gonna do root equals new frame layout and this as the context, and we're gonna set it as the content view. Nope, do not add anything to this root. And now we're gonna add a method to load a page. Let's name it load page. It takes a page, and we can keep track of the loaded page. Let's name it loaded. So when we try to load a new page, we check if the old page is not null. We remove it from the root, remove view, loaded, and then the loaded becomes this page and it gets added, and also it executes its attachment. So we can now create a, let's say, a package. We name it auth for authentication, and we make a class there, name it login. Login extends page. It's a page, the login page. And the login page can be now added or loaded. Load page, new, login, and this. So now if we inspect the layout, we can find that we have two frame layouts. This one is the root and the other one is the login page. When we need to navigate from one page to another, this one gets removed and another one gets added, but we're still using one single activity. Now my problem with this login page is that it is occupying the entire screen. Like the status bar and the navigation bar need not to be covered by the content. So we're gonna implement some custom behavior to allow changes, to allow pages to consider the window inset when they lay out their children and count. And to make that, we're gonna go back into the page class. We're gonna make a new function, call it apply insets. This function is gonna allow pages to apply the window insets upon themselves using their own defined behavior. So they take an insets object. Let's say, yeah, it's this one. Let's say that the app needs to set up a listener for insets changes. We can do that on the root. We can do get view tree observer. We can do add on global layout listener. This listener that we're adding here is gonna listen for insets changes and then will pass the new state to the loaded page or to anything that needs to handle it. Here we can do root.get root window insets. Alright, this function here returns window insets. Let's put them in a variable. Let's name it win, like winsets, window insets. And if this win is not null, if when is not null, we're gonna create an insets object equals insets dot of, and here we're gonna use, alright, did that for me. And then if there is a loaded page, if it's not null, we're gonna do loaded dot apply insets. Now we need to apply the insets also in this stage. When we are loading a new page, we need to apply the insets on it. So these insets that we are creating here need to be kept somewhere. You can do private, let's say system, okay, it's insets, let's name it system insets. And here we can do something like, we need to handle the null state by making a 0, and so we can do, let's take this, put it here, and let's say if when is null, then it's gonna, if it's null, we're gonna do insets dot none. If it's not null, we're gonna use the window insets that we got from the root. Alright, looks like this can work. And here we're gonna store the result in the system insets so we can reuse it later. So here we're gonna use system insets, and this code is gonna go up here. Alright. Now we need to apply the insets in the loading phase before attaching it. So, alright, it goes like this. We can test that. If we go back to the login page, we can, let's say we can create a new frame layout. Let's say color equals new frame layout with the context. And then we're gonna give it a background color. Let's make it green. For instance, if we run this, we're gonna get green all over the place, but we want to skip these parts, and to do that we can override the apply insets method we declared in our page class, and we can say set padding insets dot left, it's left top right bottom, insets dot top, insets dot right, insets dot bottom. Left top right bottom. If we run this, you can see the green space. There is something going wrong here. It says insets left on a null object reference. So these insets that are being passed here are null because the initial state of the insets object is null. So we can give it an initial state of 0 insets. But it's still gonna work. You can see that the green thing is now skipping the insets, the navigation and status bars, because it's setting the padding for the login page so that the children are not using that space because it's padding. It's padded. Alright, I can remove these, and now we can move on to the next thing, which is creating style file for dark theme and light theme. We're gonna create the assets folder, source main asset. We're gonna store our colors in JSON format. So I'm gonna create dark.json, and we're gonna create light.json. And these two files are gonna contain colors for the dark color scheme and light color scheme. I have an example here. Let's say the dark ones look like this. We have a background primary, background secondary, background text primary, text mute, text error, text positive, and text and accent. This is the dark color scheme, and the light color scheme is gonna be this one. Alright, now that we have the files, you can tweak the colors as you please. I'm gonna leave them like this, and I am gonna create functions to read this file. So I am gonna create a class, name it assets, and the assets class is gonna have a method, let's make it static, which returns a string, and it reads a file. We give it the path and it reads the file. It's gonna need the context to access the assets. Import. So we're gonna do a buffered reader. let's name it br equals new buffered reader, and inside that we're gonna make an input stream reader, and in that we're gonna do context.getAssets.open path. We can use the UTF encode in here, but the problem with this is that it creates a closable, and closables need to be created within a try-catch block. So we're gonna do catch IO exception, so the error is gone, and here we're gonna try to, if we get an exception, what do? We return null, and here we're gonna read the content. It says string builder sb equals new string builder string line while line is not null sb.append. This looks fine to me, and we're gonna return that. We're gonna just trim our lines. Alright, so this function looks alright to me. It's just little we're not gonna change it for now. We're gonna leave it as it is. Let's create our style class in the style package. So in the style package, I'm gonna create the style class, and the style class is gonna have some attribute. Let's say the name, and let's say it has a boolean for whether or not it's dark or light, and it has a hash map to store all the colors of this color scheme, color palette. The colors are gonna have names and values. The values are integers, so I'm gonna name this colors. Okay, so now we need a constructor for the style class, which takes the, let's say it takes a context because we need it to read the assets. This constructor is not going to be public. I'm going to keep it private. So now I can save the name, and the dark equals dark, and the colors, going to initialize them as an empty hash map. We can get rid of these, and now we need to read the file. The files are an asset, so now we can read them using our asset reader. Let's do it right in the constructor. Let's do string data equals assets dot read asset, takes the context and the path. The path is no, it's the name. It's the name plus dot JSON. And then we need to make a JSON object out of this. So we can do JSON object data equals new JSON object. It needs to be surrounded with try catch, and we can iterate or loop through the keys of this JSON object. We can do while key has next. We can do string key equals keys dot next, and we can do string value equals key data dot get string key, right? And then we can store this value into our hash map. We have the key here, and we need to parse the color string because the colors in the JSON object are in hex. They are hex codes for colors. But now we need to parse them into integers. We can use color.parse color and give it the value. This is exactly what this function does. It parses a hex color into a color int. Alright, we can have now, because the constructor is private, we need to have some public style. We can do public static style. We can have dark and light, and we need a way to initialize it. Public static void init. Yes, it needs a context, and it initializes both of. Now this initialization method needs to be called somewhere, and I'm gonna do it right here. Let's say style dot init this. Now we created the style files and we loaded them into hash maps. Now we need to apply them, but to apply them we need something that can listen for change, like an observable. we're gonna create our own. We're gonna make a package, let's name it OBS for observable. Let's make some interfaces in it. Let's say this is an observable. The observable has a generic type. It has a, let's say, t get value and void set value. Let's say it has void add observer and remove observer. Notify, not notify, let's say clear. Now we need the observer interface. It also has a generic type, and it has on update, it's gonna have an old value and a new value. So now the observable is fine. We can create a class that implements these. Let's name it property. Property also has a generic type and it implements observable. So it needs a t, let's say private t value, and it has a private array list of type observer of type t. Let's name it observers. That's basically all we need. It can have a constructor that takes the initial value, and then we can do get value, we can do set value, and then we can do add observer, observers dot add observer, and we can do remove, and it's going to be observers dot remove observer, and we can do clear, and it's going to be observers dot clear. Now when we set the value, it means it changed, so the observers need to be notified. This can be final. So the set value needs to keep track of the old value before changing it. So here we can make sure that it actually changed. Something like this could work. If the new value is not exactly the same as the old value, we can do observers dot for each observer dot update, but not this. We have the old and the value. So when we set the value, we notify all the observers. When we add an observer, we notify it. We give it the same thing. This looks alright to me. And now the style class, we can have a style attribute here, but we're not gonna make it style. We're gonna make it a property of type style. So we're gonna do this. Alright, and style, after initializing the style class, we can do a new property. We're gonna give it an initial value of dark. Alright, we can have a getter for get style, but now we need a way for UI components to register themselves as listener on this style property. And to do that, we can have an interface. Let's create an interface. Let's name it stylable. So a stylable is an interface that UI elements can implement, and if they implement it, they get flagged, like they get bound to that style property. Like when it changes, they reflect the change. So we can have void apply style, which is the method that allows them to apply the new style on themselves. And we have void bind. Bind style doesn't take a style, takes a property of type style. And let's name it style, and we can give it a default implementation. The default implementation is gonna be style.add listener or add observer. Like when the style changes, this stylable needs to apply the new style on itself. This looks alright to me. So now when we go back to the login page, we can flag it as stylable by implementing the stylable class interface. And then we have to implement apply style. And here we can do something like set background color to something from the style. Like this style, we need to have a way to extract colors from it. So we're gonna go to the style class. Okay, we can add a get name and is dark. We may have that. We may need that later. And I'm gonna put this to the side for a second. I'm gonna open this and I'm gonna make functions or methods to retrieve these colors from the hash map. So I'm gonna have a private integer, let's say it's int, get color, get or default colors dot get or default. Yeah, we can use that, and the default is gonna be color dot transparent or black or white or red, so we can identify that. Unboxing of get or default may produce null pointer exception. This map contains no mapping for the key. Why would it return null? It would return null if it contains a mapping, but the mapping maps to null. So we can use something better than get or default. We can use compute if absent, and then we will do key and return red here. This is more sure, like it checks not only if a mapping exists, but also if the mapping is not null. Here is not associated with a value or is mapped to null. So it checks for both cases. But the previous one, get or default, it only checks if a mapping exists. So we're gonna use this one. And now we're gonna have public int get background primary, and it's gonna return colors dot get color. Yeah, that's how it looks. Second, I'm gonna let it implement all of them. What? It's hallucinating. I don't have the. No, I'm gonna do it on my own. Get text primary. Get text secondary. Now it should be get text muted. No, it's hallucinating. Public int get text muted. Return text muted, and then get text error. Public int get text error, and it's gonna be, and then get text positive. Public int get text positive for green and red text. Nah, there's no negative. I'm gonna make this get accent, and it's gonna return the accent. Alright, now I have the getters for almost all the colors. I can go back to the login page and say, when the style changes and this method gets executed, it's gonna set the background color to get background primary from the new style. So the last thing I need to do is bind this style to the context, because my app has a property. This is what I need to bind the login page to. So I need a way to access this style from this context. I mean, this is an app but the code does not know. Its runtime class is app, but its declared type is context. So in my stylable, I'm gonna make another bind style. My new bind style is gonna take a context, let's say context, and it's gonna check if this context is instance of app. We're gonna do bind style to app.getStyle. Okay, I need to import that first. Alright, so now in my login page, I can give it the context, and it's gonna bind this UI component to my app, to the style property in my app class. When I run this, nothing is gonna change, but the login page is using this color here in the dark, this background primary. This is the color being used here. And if I switch, this is the initial value of the style property. If I make it light, the login page is gonna follow that. Now I have a little problem here. The status page, the status bar has some icons and text in it, and it's white, and the background is white, and it's not readable. So we need a way to fix that. We need some cleaning up or setting up when the, let's say, private void, when the style is changed, we need to do some cleaning up. Let's name it apply style, and we're gonna call it whenever the style changes. Let's add an observer for that. We have the old value and the new value, and we're gonna do apply style. So in this apply style, we're gonna make sure our status page is consistent, our status bar is consistent with our theme. So here we need to make sure that the style is not null, otherwise we're gonna return. Let's make this equal. And then we need the window. It's gonna be get window, and then we need to add some flags. Window dot add flags, and then we're gonna say that the window manager layout parents flag draws system bar backgrounds, and then we're gonna do window insets controller compat. We're gonna name it controller equals new window insets controller compat. We're gonna give it the window and the root, and then we're gonna use this controller to set light status bar. When do we set the light status bar? When the style dot get value dot is light. Oh, we only have is dark, so it's dark but it's not dark. And we can do the same thing with set navigation bars to style dot get value dot is dark. And I hope this works. I'm not sure if it's going to. Okay, it's not going to. It says that there's a null pointer exception, maybe because the root is still null when we apply the style for the first time. So we're gonna move this down here. As you can see, our status bar is now reflecting our theme or our style, our color palette. So if we set this to dark, it's gonna be white. If we set this to white, it's gonna be dark. Alright, this is functional. Now I'm gonna add a way to follow the application. Here I have a dark theme, it's enabled, but the app is not following that. So I'm gonna add some code to make it do that. I'm going to add or override some method. It's called onConfigurationChanged. When the configuration changes, I'm gonna do something here, and this function or method is gonna be triggered based on the manifest. When you have config changes here, the things you put here are what's gonna trigger the onConfiguration changed. So if the screen size changes but you don't have it here and the config changes, it's not gonna trigger it. So I have the color mode in my config changes, so when it changes, it's gonna trigger this function. So let's say we make a new function. We name it apply system style. And here we need to check if the system is in dark theme or in light theme. So let's call this function here apply system style, and we are going to pass the new configuration to this function. Let's name it config. So we need to check if this config is in light mode or in dark mode. Let's say dark equals the config. It has a UI mode in it, which is an int. We're gonna end that with we're gonna mask it by the configuration dot UI mode night mask, and see if it equals configuration dot UI mode night yes. I'm not sure if this makes sense to you, but it does make sense. So you get the UI mode and you mask it with the night mask, and you see if that value equals yes in simpler terms. So now we can do style dot set value. If it's dark, we're gonna do style dot dark. If it's not, we're gonna do style dot light. Alright, I think we can try this. So if we change from dark to light, the app changes from dark to light. If we do it like this, it's dark. Let's try that again. So it is working. I can try to go over everything that we did today. We have the assets. This reads files from the assets we have here into a string. The stylable is an interface. When you have a UI component that needs to be bound to the style, needs to be colored using colors from the color palette, needs to implement this interface and bind itself as an observer on the style property. The style object holds a hash map of all the colors of this palette. The property is an observable that holds a value and the list of observers. These are interfaces for observable and observer. The page is a component that can be added to the screen or removed from the screen. You can switch or navigate between pages, and it has some logic for when it's attached, detached, or to apply the window insets on itself. The login is one page. It's a class that extends page and is also stylable. It binds itself as an observer on the style property, so when the style property's value changes, it applies the new style on itself by setting the background color. And that's basically everything we did today. I'm gonna push these changes to the GitHub repository. You can comment things you want to see me doing next, or you can give me insights on how I can make these videos better. Thank you for watching.